If you're watching this tape, it means that we were too late. It all started with that movie, that film that everybody seems to praise, but I just couldn't stand. It all started with my review of Cloverfield. Hello everybody, I'm Zenith Warrior Princess, the cutest of buns, and welcome to Zen Movies, where I take a look at one of the numerous different films in my collection. And today we have a doozy of a film to discuss. Back in 2008, a movie was released that took the internet by storm. Everyone, and I do mean everyone, was talking about it. Film critics, movie buffs, and people on both Twitter and Facebook were all making a huge fuss about this new giant monster movie. Now, personally, I've never paid movie hype too much attention. There have been a few films here and there that I've been super excited to see in theaters, like Captain America and Watchmen, and Knives Out because, that was really hype. But I prefer to avoid films that everyone wants to talk about. I don't know exactly why, but whenever all of my friends tell me to go watch a movie or an anime or a series, I just end up wanting to avoid it. I know it's weird, but that's just the way I'm hardwired. And so, with all of this internet hype surrounding the film, I firmly entrenched myself in my college dorm room, put on Yu Yu Hakusho, and did my best to let the film slip quietly under my radar. However, it seems I was destined to see this film because 5 years later, during one of my final college courses on disaster films, my professor showed us this film in class, and I finally discovered what all the hype was about. What is this movie, you ask? I speak, of course, about Cloverfield, the film that destroyed the Statue of Liberty, although that's probably the most memorable thing about the film. Cloverfield is an American monster movie that bills itself as a horror film, but has much more in common with the Blair Witch Project than it does with traditional horror films. The film centers around 6 people living in New York City who find themselves in the midst of a giant monster attack and have to make it out of the city before it's reduced to rubble by the creature and the military who are trying to stop it. Unfortunately, while this description makes the movie sound exciting, the execution of the film leaves much to be desired. The first and most glaring problem with Cloverfield is the camera work. Unfortunately, Cloverfield is yet another film to jump on the shaky cam bandwagon that started with the Blair Witch Project back in 1999. For those who don't know, shaky cam is a technique that independent film producers created in order to make films look more quote-unquote realistic. The idea is to put us in the shoes and perspective of the characters, and in that way the horror is more personal and, in theory, much more terrifying. This technique is designed to make us believe that the film is real, but I find that it does the complete opposite, and just watching shaky cam gives me a headache. This is admittedly a personal problem, but I cannot watch these types of films without getting a headache, and that makes it far less enjoyable to watch any film with shaky cam. Now, in a traditional film, we are shown the events of the film from either an omniscient perspective that allows us to see everything that is happening from every angle, or we're shown the events from the perspective of one of the characters in the film, and we see what they see. When it comes to shaky cam, you get none of this because the camera doesn't focus on anything in particular. None of the shots of this film are even centered on the characters for more than a few moments. Most of the time, the camera is moving around in every direction and doesn't give you a chance to take anything in. It's like you're on a cruise ship where everything is constantly moving and you never really get a chance to get your bearings. The setting, characters, and giant monster are all hurt by the fact that we never get a chance to appreciate any of them. Yes, there are several moments where the characters stop running around the city and we get some quote-unquote character development, but there are three major issues that I have with these scenes. First of all, they are still very poorly filmed. Half of the time we're viewing these characters at Dutch angles for no reason, and the other half of the time we are just viewing a static shot of the characters' faces where most of their face is cut from the shot. I know they're trying to get across that these characters are scared, but there are so many other shots they could have used for these scenes. When you rely too much on close-up facial reactions, it starts to get old really fast, especially when you can only see half of the characters' faces. Second of all, nothing actually happens during any of these scenes. We see the characters sit around and act scared, but we learn nothing new about any of them during these moments. We get it! A giant monster just attacked the city. Of course you're scared. We know that. Let us actually learn something about these people instead of just having them sit around and talk about nothing. In fact, half the time they talk over each other, so it's hard to tell what they're actually saying. And yes, that's chaotic, but it doesn't help us learn anything. Talk about your past and relate that to why you're so scared. Talk about how this event is bringing back childhood trauma, or better yet, show the childhood event on screen in a flashback. There are so many ways to make these scenes memorable, but instead we get nothing. Last and most important, these scenes drag on for far too long. Each of these vignettes lasts for almost 15 minutes and only serves to reiterate what we already know. Giant monster attacked, people are scared. It just gets to the point where you're checking your watch and praying for the shaky cam to return because even a headache is better than boredom. I will admit one positive about the use of shaky cam in this film, and that is the atmosphere. Because of all the close-ups and fast-paced action, you really do feel like you're in the middle of a giant monster attack. The camera work is claustrophobic and alienating, and that does help make the film seem slightly scarier than it actually is. Still, I don't feel this is entirely because of the shaky cam technique. The visuals and soundtrack of the film are what really adds to this atmosphere of alienation. Everything in this film looks slightly tinted and surreal, giving each scene a haunting vibe to it, and the minimalist score just builds upon that. In fact, I would go so far as to say the atmosphere is directly influenced by the soundtrack and the look of the film. Think about this for a second. On its own, the shaky cam doesn't work. If you took a traditional approach with the same visual style and music, you would have a much better film. Oh wait, they already made it! 35 years ago. Once you get past the poor cinematography, the rest of the film isn't bad, but it isn't exactly good either. As I said before, the atmosphere of the film makes you feel like you're in the middle of a monster attack, which works for creating tension, but doesn't work when you're trying to create a story. Over the course of the film, we learn absolutely nothing about this monster. The military don't know anything, the characters don't know anything, and the government that found this footage in the first place don't tell us anything more than what's shown on screen. While this makes sense from the perspective of the characters, it is extremely frustrating to watch. I need to know at least something about this creature for its death to have any sort of meaning. That is, unless we're supposed to root for the monster to kill the main characters, which would make far too much sense to be true. In addition to the complete lack of information, we only ever get brief glimpses of the monster until the very end, and the reveal is far from satisfying. As far as creature designs go, it's okay, but it's nothing memorable, and it's not exactly scary. John Carpenter's The Thing is scary. Michael Myers is scary. Hell, even Dracula is scary, but this thing, whatever it is far from scary. You might be wondering why I keep bringing up the fear factor in a creature feature, but here's the thing. Cloverfield was billed as a scary film. All of the trailers for the film show the Statue of Liberty being destroyed and people running in fear from some creature that we couldn't see. Much like countless other films before it, Cloverfield's trailer lied to us. Then again, I question the validity of any trailer that doesn't actually tell us the title of the film. Yeah, that's how they marketed Cloverfield, by not telling us the title of the film. I don't understand how this works. Also, how is this a creature feature if we only see the monster for like 5 seconds of the film? If you thought there wasn't enough Godzilla in the 2014 film, then Cloverfield will leave you incredibly disappointed. So, if it's not a horror film and we know nothing about the monster, I guess we're supposed to latch onto the people escaping from the monster, right? Wrong again. The people suffer from the exact same problem. We know nothing about them. Well, we know little things. We know that Rob had sex with his longtime friend Beth, and apparently it was so good that he spends the entire film running towards the monster to save her, even though there's no way of knowing whether or not she's even still in New York, aside from a voice message she recorded earlier in the day. We know he's supposed to be going to a job in Japan, but then the monster attacks and we forget all about that plot point. We know that HUD is the man working the camera, and he's a complete idiot. I should probably hate him because of this, but he's honestly the only character that had a defining quality that I could identify. He was so dumb that he was hilarious to me, and I found his comic relief to be the only thing about Cloverfield that wasn't completely boring, especially when he's surprised that Marlena knows who Superman is, and she sarcastically replies, "Are you aware of Garfield?" That was probably the best part of the film. Well, that and the tunnel scene where the spider monsters attack the group, that was actually pretty awesome. As for the other characters, they're even more one note, if that's even possible. I can honestly tell you nothing about them besides their relation to each other. Jason is Rob's brother, and Lily and Marlena are friends with Beth. That's it. That's all the info that we get about them. We get nothing else. This just baffles me on so many levels. I mean, the film tries to give them development, albeit very poorly. In addition to the scenes I mentioned earlier, where they sit around and talk about nothing, The first 20 minutes of the film are completely monster-free and are supposed to introduce us to these characters. This is, by far, the most boring part of the film because nothing interesting ever happens. We see the characters meet up at a party, we see Hud try to hit on Marlena, and we see them discuss Rob's sexual encounter with Beth, but none of it actually captures your attention. In fact, the first time I saw this film, at the end of this 20-minute sequence, I didn't even know their names. With such little characterization, how are their deaths supposed to have any meaning? I never felt anything when they died, except for the relief that the movie was drawing closer to an end. What's even more frustrating is the fact that most of these death scenes go by so fast that it's hard to tell that these characters were killed in the first place. In the beginning of the film, Jason is killed when the monster destroys the Brooklyn Bridge, but I had no idea this had happened until the characters tell us about it 5 minutes later. At a later point in the film, another character is infected by a spider bite and her stomach freaking explodes, but instead of showing us this, she's pulled behind a curtain and it looks like she was shot in the head. It wasn't until second viewing that I realized what really happened to her, but even then the scene carried no emotional weight. This film is just so vague on the details. Maybe the point is to be vague, since this is a found footage flick, but if so, we should really have a narrator or central character trying to piece together these events and clarify things for the audience. Hell, why not have this instead of the incredibly long scenes of these characters just talking? Have us instead focus on a government agent trying to piece together events from this footage. Otherwise, it's pointless having this even be a found footage film because we don't know why it was found or what purpose it serves. It's just vaguely defined characters running from a vaguely defined monster filmed on a camcorder for vaguely defined reasons that was found by the government and is held just because. It's just so frustrating trying to sum this up because nothing is clearly defined and everything is just up to interpretation, or I have to look up additional material just to figure out what's happening in the goddamn film. You know what else I learned? This monster that the entire film was building up to is not just one monster, but multiple newborn baby monsters. Yes, you heard that right. These are supposed to be babies, and the reason they're attacking is because they're frightened. Excuse me? How were we supposed to figure out there was more than one monster? And how are these babies? These monsters take bullets, Patriot missiles, and even a goddamn nuke to the face, and they aren't even phased. Also, what were they so frightened of that made them attack the city in the first place? Was the city just that scary that hatching in it caused them to freak out? This is starting to make my head hurt. Well, the film already made my head hurt because of the shaky cam, but now it hurts even more. Unfortunately, it just gets worse. J.J. Abrams, the producer of the film, talked at length about Cloverfield at Comic-Con back in 2007. When asked about the origins of the film, he had this to say: "We saw all these Godzilla toys, and I thought we need our own American monster, and not like King Kong. I love King Kong. King Kong is adorable. And Godzilla is a charming monster too. We love Godzilla. But I wanted something that was just insane and intense." Doesn't that just sum up the problems with the film perfectly? At the core level, J.J. Abrams didn't understand the film he was trying to ape. Now, I don't think Abrams is necessarily a bad director, since I loved The Force Awakens, and I quite enjoyed Star Trek 2009 and Into Darkness. With that being said though, what was he thinking with this? If he was trying to create a creature feature like Godzilla and King Kong, it needed to be about the goddamn monster. You can make a kaiju film more intense and terrifying, I'm fine with that, but dear God, let us interact with the damn kaiju. That's the entire point of it being a kaiju flick. Creature features are all about celebrating the monster. Even The Thing showed us scenes of the monster being creepy and scary, and the whole premise of The Thing was the thing wanted to hide from everyone. This just gave us nothing of interest. It wasn't a kaiju film. It was a Blair Witch wannabe, and that really hurts the film in so many ways. At the end of the day, Cloverfield is just okay. It's just kinda there. There are certain things that really irritated me while I was watching, like the shaky cam and the lack of information, but those things don't exactly make the film bad per se. The cardinal sin of the movie is just the fact that it is too damn boring. There are way too many scenes of the characters not interacting with the Cloverfield monster, and when we do see some action, it's over far too quickly. It's just not as engaging or entertaining as it should be, and that's a poor quality to have in a film. As for Abrams, I'm not quite as offended by the quote as I should be. That one quote shows that Abrams completely doesn't understand the appeal of these creature features, and that shows in Cloverfield. He took a concept that he thought he understood and tried to modernize it with mixed results. With that being said, there is one thing that I would like to point out. At 3 specific points in the film, Abrams placed a still frame from an old school creature feature in between jump cuts. One of these 3 images is taken directly from King Kong, which is rather hypocritical of him. He calls King Kong adorable, and then he puts Kong in the film as some sort of homage, I guess, even though you probably won't see it unless you go frame to frame. Personally, I find that an incredibly disrespectful thing for him to do. Despite all this, Cloverfield raked in $170.8 million at the box office, which is crazy considering it only had a budget of $25 million. Yeah, they made 7 times their budget. I have no words, that's pretty damn awesome. Audiences simply ate this film up, meaning sequels were all but inevitable. Thus far, we have 10 Cloverfield Lane starring John Goodman, which people say is actually much better, and I'm excited to see and review in the future because John Goodman is awesome. And the Cloverfield Paradox, which I've heard nothing about, and that's not usually a good sign. I'll touch upon both of these films in the future, but for now, I need a break from Cloverfield, because this film gives me a headache every time I watch it, and this is no exception. Cloverfield is distributed by Paramount Pictures, so if you're curious, you can easily find it at any movie store. Personally, I purchased the Cloverfield 3 movie collection at FYE, which includes all 3 current films for only $20, which is an amazing deal, even though I'm not a big fan of the first film. This set also includes a bunch of special features, including commentary by director Matt Reeves, deleted scenes, alternate endings, and a making of featurette. None of which changed my opinion on the film itself, but did help me understand what they had intended for it. In any case, I'm Zenith Warrior Princess, the cutest of buns, and I will see you on the next episode of Zen Movies. If you like what you see, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe so that you too can join the Bun Squad, my legion of cute fluffy bunnies that engage with my videos. And be sure to hit that bell to get notified every time a new video is uploaded. Have a good one, everybody. So there we have it, the review that started all of this. Chiaki saw this review and decided that she could make a better kaiju than the monster in the movie. So she stole Linkara's magic coin, made herself grow giant size, and started terrorizing the city. It's up to me to stop her. Hopefully without dying in the process. Although that's probably likely. Wish me luck, Bun Squad. I'm going to need it.